Hi everyone, welcome to the 2025 photo class by Focal Point. I'm so excited to have you guys all here. I hope you are as well. I know that the other mentors and teachers are very enthusiastic, and we're really looking forward to seeing what you do this next few months. So some of you maybe are just getting into photography, brand new hobby, brand new camera. Maybe some of you found a camera in the back of a closet. Maybe some of you have been around for a while and are just looking to kind of knowledge check yourself and make sure that you know what you think you know or fill in any gaps. The good news is that you're all in the right place, because this course is all about finding a perfect balance between the technical and the creative. We are going to look at the things like exposure and obviously camera settings, but we are also going to look at more of the artistic side of things like compositional guidelines and color theory, and we will even look at some historical photography and notable photographers. So of course it is normal and natural to maybe feel a little bit nervous, especially if you're not sure where to begin. But don't worry. We're all here for you, the teachers, the mentors, and honestly, most importantly, you have a whole cohort of other people, peers, and classmates who are going through the same thing at the exact same time as you, and you guys should lean on each other. The community is really what makes this special and is what's going to give you the most out of your time with the course. We are going to give you guidance. We will give you encouragement, of course, and we will push you a little bit out of your comfort zone every now and then. So as long as you're open to that, you're going to be fine. Just come in and know that everybody is at different places in their photography journey, right? So it's okay if you're down here and this is brand new. It's okay if you maybe have a little bit more knowledge about one part or the other. Just be open to hearing critique, hearing feedback, giving feedback as well. We'll talk about more of that in this lesson. Now, before we jump into all the details and the crux of the whole course, we need to kind of reset. We need to take a moment to think about what photography really is at its core. It sits in a unique space in between, both technology and art. So science and technology and art meet together to get to photography. It's a very specific and unique So before we jump into the crux of the course, we need to kind of reset. We need to think about for a moment what photography really is at its core. Now, photography sits at a pretty interesting intersection of technology and science and art. This is pretty unique to photography. There are other media that have this, but remember that you don't need to be an expert in both sides of the things, but we will try to give you a nice baseline for both. We are going to encourage you to use manual mode in certain lessons, but one thing I do kind of want you to remember is that manual mode isn't the end-all be-all. A lot of newcomers might hear like, oh, if you don't use manual mode, you're not a real photographer. That's nonsense. Okay, so don't worry about that. Those auto modes are there for you. The important thing that we really kind of want to hit home is that you have a giant toolbox, big photographer's toolbox. We want you to know what tools are in there and when each one is appropriate to use. So there's no problem choosing the Phillips head over the flathead if that's what fits the screw better. If I'm going to torture a metaphor, there we go. We are as well going to give you the tools you need for the artistic side. Really remember that the ultimate goal is for you to walk into a scene, envision something in your head, and know how to execute it. So we are going to give you the tools that will allow for that. This is a beginner's course. So of course we're going to kind of not get as deep into some things that may interest you. Remember that this is just the stepping stone. If you have a real interest in the technical side, you want to know more about how sensors work, we can help you find those resources to get there. Same goes with the artistic side. We will get into it, and then you might find something really sparks. Talk to us. We will help you find those resources that will get you there. In the end, this is all about you. This is about your goals. This is about your achievements. This is about what you produce. And honestly, if there's one thing that I can really kind of hit home for you guys, is that you have a unique opportunity to lean on a big, knowledgeable community, and having that resource available to you, that's the biggest tool in your toolbox. So talk to each other, talk to the mentors, talk to the teachers, ask questions, give feedback to your classmates, ask for feedback from others, and just be really open to learning from one another, because that's what's really going to make this stick. And that's what's really going to make this a unique and successful opportunity for everybody. So here we are. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys do. We have a lot more in store. So go ahead and jump right into Unit 1. All right, so welcome back. We are going to start this entire journey by talking about feedback and inspiration. We are going to start with inspiration because I think that is one of the biggest hurdles that both new and veteran photographers fall into. We run out of motivation, we run out of inspiration, we don't know what to do. So we're starting this class with that because we want you to have the skills in order to combat this when it comes up, because it will come up. So what are we going to do? Well, where do we go for inspiration? That's a question that I hear a lot. I have no motivation. I live in a boring town. I don't know what to do. What can I even begin to take a photo of in my small Midwestern town? No offense to the Midwest. That's just the one I hear the most. So here's my biggest advice is look everywhere. It sounds really trite. It sounds really, really silly, but honestly, you can find inspiration from everywhere. We don't want to limit ourselves to just photography for inspiration either. We're going to talk about some resources below to help you find photography to get inspiration, but know that you can find inspiration from other visual media, from film, from music is huge, and even written works. For example, right now, what I am reading, I'm reading The Secret Lives of Color. Here you can see, for those who have been around long enough, you know that I have a bit of an unhealthy obsession with color theory. So this is where I'm pulling a lot of inspiration right now. I will let you guys know when I have finished it what I thought. But written works is a great place to pull inspiration. I want you guys to stop and just ask yourself a question. Ask yourself, when's the last time that you sought out art? When's the last time you went to a museum or a gallery? I personally like museums and galleries, so I try to go as often as possible, but maybe it's been a long time. When's the last time you actively thought about art? When you're sitting and you're watching the new Squid Game, did you notice like the camera angles? Did you notice the color? Did you notice the lighting? Or are you watching it and just enjoying the story? All of those things are things that can inspire you. So be aware. Don't just sit and consume. Consume and concentrate and think about what it is you're consuming and why it resonates with you or why it doesn't. Looking for inspiration is a useful tool, but you'll also find that it will just kind of hit you sometimes. My advice for that, when inspiration just kind of like strikes, as they say, write it down. Write down what caused it and how it made you feel. Bring a little notebook, like a little journal that you can throw in your pocket, or obviously you have your phone, you can take it into the notes. But just be open to inspiration coming at any time. Now, as far as like traditional actually seeking art, inspiration through art, go to those galleries. Your local town might not have like a huge national, internationally recognized museum, but you probably have at least a small gallery that hosts local photographers or artists of any kind. Cafes often will have local artists as well. You're going to be surprised. You're going to find that there is art is actually all around. If anyone gets that reference, then you're my new best friend. But just be very aware and look around and force yourself to go. If you've never been to a museum, by all means, just go. You're going to be surprised. You're going to see new perspectives, and you're going to encounter some things that will absolutely resonate in a positive way and absolutely resonate in a negative way, and all of those things that can be turned into inspiration. As far as photography specific, there are some great resources available to you. Obviously, there are magazines and blogs, National Geographic, Magnum Photographers, the British Journal of Photography. You're going to see a list below of more. Then, obviously, we have social media. Instagram, of course, is the first one you probably think of, but Flickr, Blue Sky, you pick if that's still around, I'm not sure, Behance. And again, there's going to be other forms of media out there that will spark your interest as well. Then there's, of course, famous photographers. Whether you like them or not, every photographer of note has some reason that they're notable. So seek those out. There's a link below that is a list put together of some of the most influential, I think they say the most influential or notable photographers of the last 100 years. Take a look at that. You're going to find some people that absolutely spark something in you. And then, of course, there's also photo books. Look at some publishers, see what they're publishing right now. Taschen, of course, is a huge one. Steidl is another one that you can look for. Again, the list below will have some more for you to kind of peruse through. Then there's, of course, our online communities. Each other will absolutely inspire you. You will inspire somebody and they will inspire you. Look at the other participants' work, look at their submissions, comment on them, pick their brain a little bit to understand why it is something that they did. And maybe that will make you think about something that you could then do. There are some, there are also some other online communities that you can just kind of root through. In Reddit, of course, there's our photographs and there's our analog community I prefer better. Then we have our groups on Discord. We have ours, and then our photography has a good one as well that are worth looking into. But no matter where you encounter this inspiration or this motivation, just make a note of it. Anytime it happens, make a note of it. So that way you can kind of circle back with yourself and check in and say, okay, well, I was feeling very uninspired today, but I know that something did something for me 6 months ago. I also recommend mood boards. Mood boards are great. It sounds silly, but Pinterest is a great place to just kind of collect images that spark, that mean something to you. Bookmark websites of photographers that you're interested in and check them regularly when you're just doing your normal doom scrolling. Throw in some art doom scrolling in there as well. And then things like patterns. You're going to start seeing patterns in the things that inspire you. Maybe you notice that you really like strong color. Maybe you notice that you really like textures and big black and white images of buildings. You know, you're going to start to see some themes, and those are themes that you will be able to always fall back on when you pull them out of your toolbox. So The important thing is to remember that inspiration is very personal. There's no wrong, no right way or place to find it. You will find it where you find it. You're going to have an assignment this week that will force you to kind of do some internal searching here and look for inspiration actively. So be prepared for that. And in the next video, we're going to talk about feedback. So open-minded, everybody. We're getting into the feedback portion of it. See you then. Okay, so now it is time to talk about the thing we all fear the most, feedback. So it's very, very important part of this class is our feedback, critique, general communication about our results. So whether you are receiving or giving it, constructive feedback will make you a better photographer. And it will expand the way you think and the way you are able to articulate your ideas about what makes a photo work or not work. Let's start with receiving critique, because I think that is the one that scares us the most. Remember that whenever you're receiving feedback, it is not a personal attack. That's very easy to say. It's very easy to get defensive, to take things personally, especially when it's something that you've put a lot of yourself into. But remember, whomever is looking at your work and talking about your work, they're doing it out of a want to help you to improve upon your own personal vision. So it's a way to kind of see your work through fresh eyes. You're going to start to notice some patterns of things that you consistently miss or that you consistently don't pay attention to. And by being told these things, you're going to be able to remind yourself of them and kind of move forward. The same kind of goes for the other way. So when you're giving feedback, you're training your eye to know what works compositionally, through light, through the act of storytelling. You're training your eye to spot these things. And then you're training yourself on how to articulate it clearly. By being able to articulate what works or what doesn't work, you're going to be able to think about that in your own work as well. So this will ultimately help you in your own process, both giving and receiving. Now, when you ask for feedback, for the sake of this class, it will be helpful to share your intention. What were you trying to do? Now, there are some times when you'll go and maybe get critique elsewhere, and it might behoove you to not give any context because you want just a blanket response of, well, what do you think about this? But in the context of the class, let's go ahead and talk about what our ideas are and what our motivation was, because that will ultimately help our mentors to give you constructive feedback that's also keeping in mind what you are trying to do. And that will be ultimately better in the course for here. This extra information will guide them to give you advice that will focus in on what it is that you want to work on and you want to get better at. So whether you're giving context or not outside of the class, again, in the class, please give us some context. The important thing is to just be open to what other people say. Now, sometimes you might receive comments that don't really align with your vision or maybe doesn't feel very relevant to what you were trying to do. That's okay. It's very normal. It's happened to me a million times. The important thing is to stay open-minded, okay? And then focus on what was helpful about that critique. Maybe there was nothing, but that's okay too. Just being able to recognize that somebody else's perspective exists will help you to then say, well, okay, but that wasn't what I was trying to do. So how can I make it more clear what I was trying to do? The important thing is to take those pieces of advice that actually are impactful for you and try to then internalize them and move forward. Okay, so remember, the important thing is to remember it's not personal. It's never personal. Just do your best to not get defensive and not to take it personally ever. Now, as far as giving advice, like giving feedback, I think one of the things that happens a lot with newer photographers in particular is that you think, well, I'm not experienced enough to critique someone's photo. Now, that's absolute nonsense. You have consumed media your entire life. You know what you like, what you don't like visually. So you have instincts. Just trust your own instincts. And remember that every perspective is different. So getting that meaningful new perspective might be exactly what that person needed to hear. So be confident in your own taste level, be confident in your own opinion, and share it. The one thing when giving critique that I am absolutely going to not just encourage you, but implore you, is that feedback needs to be actionable. This goes both in the negative and then the positive. So obviously saying something like, yo, that photo's so sick, man. Like, cool. Like, thank you. But I don't know why it's sick. Like, what makes that photo give you that reaction? Is it, you like the light? Do you like the color? Do you like the composition? Do you like the subject? Like, all of these things are more useful than killer tones, you know? That's not really helpful. It's not actionable. It's not something that we can then take into our next photo. The same goes for any more negative critiquing. If you want to give some constructive feedback, make sure it is actionable. It also helps for some people if you do the sandwich method. So you say something good, put the critique in the middle, and then something good at the end. That's kind of couching it a little bit, so you don't feel like you need to do that, but make sure that it is actionable. So let's say you see an image and you just feel like you can't really understand what the subject is. Maybe it's a little bit blurry, like maybe there's a technical problem there. You could say that. You could say, you know, I think what you're going for here has a lot of promise. But I noticed that maybe you missed the focus a little bit. Did you have your aperture too wide? Do you need to kind of stop down a little bit so you can get more focus in there? Was the subject moving? Is your shutter speed too slow? Like, giving those actionable pieces of advice are miles more useful than just saying, yo, it's blurry. Okay, so when talking with your peers and your mentors, just the two things to remember is be open to other people's opinions and to be actionable. Everything should be actionable. Okay, so it should be something the photographer can actually use. All right, now feedback is here to help us grow. So be honest with your opinions, but be constructive. And remember that every perspective has its own worth. Okay, so that's it for this first unit. Your next video will be your assignment. Be sure to read the assignment as well for more clarification. We're going to, in the next unit, we're going to start really getting into the nitty and gritty. So this is kind of like a toe in, and then we're going to move forward. So stay tuned. I'll see you guys in the assignment video, and I really look forward to seeing what you do this week, these next 2 weeks, and hopefully you can join us for a feedback session. All right. All right, so you've made it through Unit 1. That means it's time for Assignment 2. Now, if you're like, wait a second, it's Unit 1, how is it Assignment 2? Go back to Unit 0. There is a little introduction assignment that we would love you to do before doing this, because it's a great way for you to meet your peers and mentors and teachers. So let's talk about what Assignment 2 is. We talked about inspiration and feedback this week. So that is what you're going to be focusing on. 2 areas, feedback and inspiration. First, we're going to talk about feedback. You're going to do a self-review. You will choose a photo that did not turn out the way you wanted it to. So your Unit 0 assignment was to pick a photo you were proud of. This is the opposite. So you're going to pick one that you're maybe a little disappointed in. And you're going to describe for us what feels off about it. Was it the lighting wasn't quite what you wanted? Did it come out blurry? That kind of thing. If you're not sure what you don't like about it, say that. That's fine. Then you're going to give some peer feedback. So you're going to go ahead and talk to a peer about what their image assignment to here, hopefully, what maybe they could have done to improve it. So they're already disappointed in it. They already know something's wrong there. What do you think? How could that be improved upon? Okay, so that is our feedback section. Below, you can read it a little bit for some more clarity if you need it, or feel free to ask us in the comments or the Discord or the Reddit. Then our second part to this is going to be about inspiration. So you're going to find a photograph by another photographer. Can be notable, can be your neighbor, can be somebody in the group. But for something about it really engages you, it really captivates you. I want you to really kind of study it and think about what it is that you love about it. Okay, so maybe it's the color scheme, maybe it's the composition, maybe it's the subject. Just notice one thing. Try to notice one thing about it that really resonates with you. And then you're going to make your own photo. And you're going to make your own photo based off that one thing that really stood out for you. So let's say you saw a picture of it's just a street and there's like a really red fire hydrant on there. Maybe that red fire hydrant really stood out to you as it's the only like bright color in the scene. Maybe that's what you want to do. Maybe you want to go and find or create a scene with one bright color that kind of pops out from the otherwise less colorful surroundings. Maybe it was a subject. Maybe you saw a picture of a lion and then you're like, well, I have an orange cat at home. Maybe I can make him look like that lion. Okay, so you're picking one element from that image that you really like, and then you are recreating your own version using it as inspiration. I'm not asking you to recreate the picture. I'm asking you to draw an element from the picture that inspires you and make your own photo based on that. So when you've done both parts of that, share them in our class spaces, either Discord or Reddit. Our first feedback session will be on Wednesday, January 8th. Check the Discord to see the time. We'll have another one on that Sunday. We also will be having a showcase for any 2024 participants to show what they did last year now. It's officially last year. So check the events in the Discord for that as well. Do not forget your learning journal. We are we've passed getting started and we are in Unit 1 Introduction. So this is where you should be filling in. If you haven't gotten your learning journal yet, you still can. If you don't want to buy it, you can download the PDF, as we know. I did make it myself, so I will say that I think it's quite beautiful, but that's a little biased. So don't forget your learning journals. And then finally, just remember that this class and this course is completely volunteer from myself, our other teachers, and our mentors. If you're enjoying it so far, if you're liking it so far, consider donating to help us, because pay for the different costs that are involved in it. And you can see a donate link below. Just keep it in your mind as you go through this course. Maybe it's something you can throw a couple bucks at the end if you feel like it was worth it to you. That way we can keep this community going and accessible for everybody and free, always free. So go out, have fun with assignment 2. I look forward to seeing your work, and congratulations on getting through the first unit.